Sounds good. So we missed the recording. Could you restate the organization that the other attendee is representing? Just
Yep,
so we got
I'm putting it in the chat. And
perfect.
she may as well, she may also participate in chat. So just to be fully inclusive, if we make sure to check that frequently, it's often easier if they type. So,
Perfect. Yeah, we've got audience monitoring the chat here for us in the room. So
and it might just be easier if we take things a little slower so they have the opportunity to participate.
yep, can do. Awesome. Thanks for calling our attention to that, Melanie. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay. So moving through our agenda, we'll make sure to add Melanie's discussion item to the end there. Minutes from the January 21st meeting. So a copy of those have been made available online. We do have a printout available in the room. For those attending virtually, Alicia from Metro Transit was just able to join us in person. So at this time, we would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the January meeting, unless there's any comments, questions, point of discussion for that. Hearing none, we'd entertain a motion. So moved by Alicia, and second. We folks in the room to vote.
I'll second.
I wasn't here at the meeting, so I.
Okay, so Brandon will second that, and then we can have those in the room vote to approve. Any opposed, same sign? Say motion carries. Just a reminder that we do, per our bylaws, we are restricted to voting for in-person attendees. We will shift, if we wanted to shift that, we would have to look at a bylaw amendment. Rich, I know that we talked about shifting that to maybe for financial issues, but it looks like we dropped that out of the bylaw amendments. We do have virtual voting permitted for virtual only meetings, but not for hybrid.
Lindsay, I'm a little confused by that. I don't recall that being a thing. Because I just put a motion to approve it in the chat myself, prior to Alicia saying anything, so that's a little confusing to me.
So per the committee bylaws that we just had updated around the end of last year, we had discussed virtual voting as an option for this committee. Ultimately, what is included in the bylaws as they are currently presented online is that voting is still restricted to in-person members. And that, so when a committee meeting is conducted in person or in hybrid format, members must be present in person to vote. If voting members are unable to attend the committee meeting in person, they may designate a proxy representative who shall possess the voting privileges for the designated meeting. We did put a caveat in there for meetings that are switched to virtual only. And if the meeting is virtual only, then we are permitting virtual voting. So that is something that we could change in the bylaws if this committee decides to do so, but at this time, that is currently what they say.
Thanks for the clarification. I'll leave it be for now. We have lots to discuss today, so. Thank you.
And I can make sure that we bring that up if there's time at the end today, or we can also bring that up at a future meeting. Okay. So moving on to our next agenda item, we are looking at CTC elections and membership renewal. So this is something that we need to do on an annual basis. For our elections, CTC currently has 2 co-chairs of this committee. Right now, those co-chairs are Richard Fall and Melanie Davis. Each co-chair serves a 1-year term that runs on MAPA's fiscal year. So that's starting July 1st through the end of June. Co-chair responsibilities include presiding at meetings of the Coordinated Trans Committee and approving agendas ahead of time, as well as providing communication between the committee and MAPA and TTAC, as well as representing the committee in other useful duties of the office. At this time, both Melanie and Rich's terms will be coming to an end as of June 30. Both are permitted to run again. We don't have any kind of term limits on these positions. Rich has made it known that he does not intend to run again for chair of this committee. And we'd like to first and foremost thank Rich for all his hard work that he's done on this committee over the years. Melanie, I'm not sure, are you on board to run again, or what are your
And
thoughts
it's
on that?
kind of what I wanted to talk about. If I'm free to speak now, I'd like to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, I guess I kind of feel like there's been some decisions made within our transit systems overall that make me feel like my opinions don't matter. And so, what am I doing being chair if we're making decisions that don't benefit individuals with disabilities? That's the whole reason that I'm on this committee. And we have an action item to discuss some of the changes that have been made. But if I'm going to continue to lead, I would like to see that changes actually benefit the citizens with disabilities. And I don't feel like all of them do.
Yeah, I do think, so thank you for sharing. I do think that this committee is more focused on regional coordination efforts between transit agencies.
I agree.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, like we don't have any jurisdiction over the specifics of how those transit agencies run their services. We can make recommendations and we can bring in opinions and we can look at coordination at the regional level. But I agree that the power of this committee is a little limited in that regard.
So
We still,
if I could add an additional point, this committee's role is to work on coordination of services, and we've done some really cool things as a committee, as an example being the transportation with myself to Council Bluffs was a coordination with the uh, Council Bluffs paratransit services, yet we have not worked as a committee, at least in my opinion, to educate citizens how to do that. And that is
hmm,
something I feel like we could have done. And
yeah.
so it's right now just living as something Melanie's done, and I didn't, that's not why I did it.
Yeah, so I will say that in this upcoming year, one of the big action items of this committee is to update our coordinated transit plan. And if there are specifics, like you mentioned, of public education that we want to focus on, then that is something that we can make sure is a priority in that planning effort. That coordinated transit plan is kind of the main work piece that this committee is responsible for. It does only get updated every 5 years or so, which is why we haven't been doing too much of the stuff with that. And I can agree. To be frank, we haven't done the best job of operating under the guidelines of that plan. And I think that there is an opportunity moving forward for us to use that more as a guiding principle and instead of like a shelf document kind of thing. So I think there is opportunity to kind of push for those things through that particular plan under the work of this group.
So to circle back to your original question about whether I'm interested in maintaining a co-chair role, that's only if there's a place for the paratransit user perspective here, because right now it just doesn't, I don't know where you guys feel my voice is necessary.
Yeah, I think especially in that planning effort, over the next year, we will absolutely be wanting your perspective and insight to make sure that we're looking at it not only from the perspective of the service providers, but also from the perspective of the user, because ultimately that is the goal of the work.
And I will also say that whoever chooses to take or if I end up being reelected and whoever chooses to be co-chair because Rich is stepping down, understand that there is a small learning curve to working with someone with a disability, so they have to be willing to put in the time. Um,
Yep.
I respect Rich for the time that he put in to figure out how to co-chair with m me. Thanks, Rich. You did it. So, but yes, I'm interested in running if my opinion's going to matter.
Yep.
So I'll share a couple things. For one, I'll say, Melanie, I don't feel like it was anything excessive by any means. It was just some conversation. So I'll give you some credit on that. As far as what Lindsay was just talking about with the coordinated transit plan and not really having a whole lot of movement forward, I think the big part of that is that it was created 5 years ago when just life in general looked a lot differently then. And I think just because of that, and it maybe not being our immediate focus, that I don't want to say it got forgotten about, but I think it just kind of got put on the back burner for a while, and then it's kind of hard to reignite some of those. So I do think that some of those previous passions or just interests could, really kind of, I don't know, maybe perfect the future goals and kind of the direction of the committee.
Yeah. Thanks, Rich. I would agree with that. You have any other comments, concerns? Good. Then, so we've kind of gone over, so just move back to the officer elections. We've kind of moved back to terms are outlined, the responsibilities are outlined. That coordinated transit plan is going to be a very big piece of the work of this committee moving forward. It's due in December 27. This group is kind of the one that's going to be shepherding it through the planning process that is led otherwise by MAPA staff. So with those things in mind, I would open the floor up to nominations for either co-chair position. Reminder that we have two co-chairs. Self-nominations are more than welcome. So is anybody willing to take on co-chair responsibility for the upcoming fiscal year? Stuff in the chat.
Melanie Davis is willing to self-nominate.
Great. We have one nomination for Melanie Davis. Any other nominations?
Rich has nominated Amanda, if she's interested.
Amanda, you've been nominated.
Punk.
I seconded that, Amanda. Like,
I'm
know
in.
you.
That's
I
fine.
know you.
Say right.
Amanda, would you accept that nomination?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I will.
So we have
Only
nomination
for
for
Melanie.
Melanie. Nomination for Melanie and a nomination for Amanda. Any other nominations at this time? Hearing none, I would open the floor for a motion to elect Melanie Davis and Amanda Parker as our co-chairs for the upcoming fiscal year. Anybody want to make that motion?
That motion.
Brandon motion, and second?
I'll second.
Alicia seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations, Amanda and Melanie. So I'll make sure to send you guys a meeting sometime in the next month or so where we can kind of sit down and figure out what we want to do for our meeting in July and kind of some of those next steps that might be needed with the coordinated insurance plan.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for willing to serve.
Thank you.
Amanda, I will say this. I was kind of hoping that there was other votes in there too, not to put you on the spot, but
No,
you'll
you're
do
fine.
We'll be all right, Amanda.
Yeah, we got this.
Committee of the Voluntold. Thanks, guys. So our other piece under here is just taking a look at our CTC membership. So what I put up here right now is our list of current active voting members. We currently have 10. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, Community Alliance, Ben is here to motion for reinstatement of voting for Community Alliance, and that would bring us up to 11 voting members. 11, I think, is the minimum. I believe we can go up. How far up can we go? We can have more than 11 members though, so we want to make sure that we're considering other potential committee members. Melanie, it sounds like we have someone online today who is interested. Is that correct?
Yes. I typed it as well as she did as well. So if you scroll up in the chat, you'll see it. But it's in there. The Cold Foundation for the Disability. education.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got someone from the Cold Foundation. Put on it.
Yeah. And it might be helpful if myself, Christy, and maybe you, Lindsay, and even
Yeah.
Amanda, if she chooses to be in that meeting, just based on my mention of potentially being an alternate for that organization, I just want to make sure those are clear in our, our membership documentation.
Yep. No, I think that sounds great. So Christy, if you're available, I can put something on the calendar for you and Melanie and I to kind of go over and discuss that. And then if there are any particular accommodations that you need, if you can please let us know about those as well. And we will do our best to make sure that you're adequately accommodated.
Thanks.
So per the CTC bylaws, any new member, I believe, needs to attend 3 meetings in order to become a member of the committee. If that's something, kind of as we were talking with our voting regulations, that's something that we might want to look at updating, especially now that the committee only meets quarterly. So given that there are only 4 meetings a year, having to attend 3 before becoming a member is a little challenging. Kind of stretches that out longer than we might want. So I would put that down as something for us to consider adjusting, maybe in our July meeting, so that we can increase our membership a little more effectively and efficiently.
And if I remember right, I think the way that that is that they can be a member now, but the voting membership is the 3.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be correct. Let me just pull it up here and double check.
I'm pretty sure Rich is correct on that. Yeah, that sounds right.
So even if you went to, first one of being a member, and then maybe the second one, it could be voted in to be a voting member. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, so I'll go through those and I'll make sure and double check that. And then, yeah, Christy, we're excited to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Lindsay, one quick thing, because we might be able to streamline some of this. I'm pretty confident where maybe if we go check the minutes for the discussion of those bylaws, where I'm pretty confident in the meeting we talked about all of this and got all of that approved on the voting from virtual when it's not money related. And it might just be a technicality on the actual document. So if it's already approved in the minutes and you just want to update the document, you could do another quick Adobe sign and get that done before having to do all that.
Yeah, that's a fair call. Yeah, thanks, Rich. I'll go back. We'll go back and check the minutes from, I think that was our meeting in September or October of last year. So we'll go cross check those and make sure that the document is appropriately up to date. So we can get everything lined up as it should be. For that. So just so that everybody's aware then, if there are other organizations that you work with in the area of transit services that you would like to bring into this group, then please let myself, Melanie, Rich, or Amanda know, and we can work to get them on our invitations and all of our emails moving forward. We hope to bring them in, give them a quick orientation, let them know what the committee's about, and then try to get some involvement that way. Chat.
Christy, yes, she has had low talks, so having issues speaking.
Okay, no worries, Chrissy. So with that, as I mentioned with Community Alliance, I would entertain a motion to reinstate voting powers for Community Alliance. So does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Brandon motion, any second?
I'll second.
Tammy second. Perfect. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. No. Community Alliance is reinstated. Thank you, Ben, for joining us.
Appreciate that.
And I'm in hindsight realizing I probably should have done those in reverse of the order, but we're good. All right, so next thing on the agenda for today, any other final comments about membership and co-chairs? Okay, and I'll move on to 5310 update and targets. Report.
Yep. Okay, everybody. So I've got some updates related to kind of the process with Nebraska DOT and how they're going to be running their call for projects and kind of what we're doing to be prepared for all of that. So the call for project schedule is probably going to change basically and become something that'll begin at the start of August and run through the end of October. And then there'll be some opportunity for CTC and then ultimately MAPA Board of Directors review and then recommendation to NDOT for awards. We're not sure exactly what that process is going to look like yet, but we are supposed to be meeting with NDOT next week about this. They're working on updating their statewide management plan for transit section funding. So we're kind of coordinating on that right now. The intention is that we'll have something for this body in the next meeting in July. And we should be able to get that stuff out to you ahead of time so you can take a look at it. If you want to preempt any questions or anything like that, we'd be happy to receive all of that stuff. What we're hoping to get out of all of this is basically a clearer process, better communication with both state DOTs, and effectively we're trying to get to faster delivery of vehicles. We can go to Melanie.
Just a clarifying question, Court. Does NDOT still receive the invite for this meeting? I know they don't typically attend, but are they still getting it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And we'll probably talk to them about that too and see kind of like how often they want to plug in and when they want to plug into the CTC. I think it would make a lot of sense if at the very least they joined us for like the July meetings going forward because it's right before the call for projects and they can kind of lay things out for us. But if they want to pass that information on to us, MAPA staff would be happy to share all of that stuff too. We'll be the main go-between.
And they may have more interest in attendance with the fact that we don't meet as often anymore. So just something to think about.
Yeah, I'll actually make a note to make sure that I bring that up with them so that they're aware that we're only meeting quarterly.
Yeah. And I think Rich kind of said the same thing in chat. So
all right, so we can go to the next page. So the way that we're planning on having the call for projects set up, and again, we're still working with NDOT on exactly what the application is going to look like. They're planning on making some adjustments. We will have vehicle purchases as well as service contracts. I know in some previous CTC meetings when I've discussed this transition, we've talked about decreasing or removing the service contracts. That's not our plan at this point. So we are intending to move forward with allowing applications for service contracts going forward. You might also know those as operating funds. So not just vehicle procurement, but also the 1 to 2 year service contracts that we offer for basically on a reimbursement basis. We will probably have more stringent requirements for those awards. We will be asking for more information up front. This is some of the same information that we would ask those recipients for when we would go to actually begin the contract, begin the agreement for accessing those funds. We're going to move that stuff forward. So we'll be asking for that stuff ahead of time before we even issue an award. So there may be a reduction in the number of contracts that we allow just based on organizational evaluation at time of application. And does that make sense? I don't know. Does anybody have questions about that? Like I said, I don't have all the answers yet, but this should become more clear as we get closer to the call for project. All right, not hearing anything right now, but if you do have any specific questions about what this may look like, you're welcome to shoot me an email or give me a call. Next up, what I would like to accomplish with the group today is setting some targets for how much we want to spend on these different project types. I want to start by letting everybody know this will not lock us in to spending those specific amounts on those project types, but I'm in a little bit of a tight spot here with just kind of how all of this is, like the timing of this call for projects versus the way that we've done things in the past. So MAPA is responsible for producing a transportation improvement program, which basically tells the federal government what we're planning on spending these federal funds on over the next 4 to 6 years. Currently, we don't have anything programmed out beyond 2025. I just kind of have estimates in there, but I would like the CTC to take a part in setting those estimates. So that's what I'm going to ask for today, and I've got some guiding information for all of you, so you're not just guessing at what these targets should be. It'll be an informed estimate of what we're going to spend the funding on. And then when we take in the applications in August through October and start reviewing those after we've got those, we'll basically come back and we'll look at the targets that we set and we'll decide, did we do a pretty good job setting those targets? Is that roughly how we want to apply these funds? Or do we want to change that? And it'll set us up to do better estimates in the years going forward. It's just that this first year that we're entering into this new process, it'll be a bit more of an estimate at this stage than, when we get further down the line, and we've done this a few times with the state DOTs in this new process. So what we're trying to do is set these targets for the development of the next tip, which must be approved in June. So before the call for projects even opens, I basically have to submit a program to FHWA and FTA to show kind of what we're thinking we're going to be spending over the next few years. Questions at this step? It's probably not clear yet. I think it's going to become clear when I start showing the numbers. We got something in the chat?
Melanie is asking, I'm curious if anyone's projects have built on better education of their services or even coordination of services. I do not think that this is important. I do think that this is important to be aware of as it relates to money.
Yeah, so there were some older projects that attempted to do some of that, but we haven't done a call for projects in a few years, but it's been a while since I've seen an application like that. That sort of thing is allowable. I'll make a note to talk to NDOT about that too, because we're going to be talking about the application and kind of what the allowable categories are. So
Yeah,
I'll
I'm really interested in that just because I feel like that's one of the areas we're really lacking here in the Omaha area. Just people being aware of what services are offered. So,
All right, hang on a second. I'm making a note, and I'll continue.
thanks, Corey.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, I've got that too.
Court, and who is the NDOT person now? Is it still, I thought it was, I want to say Carrie, but I think that's wrong. Who is it now?
Sarah Sola is the
Okay.
person who is heading up the transit department or division. I'm not actually sure what they.
Yeah, it's been a while. Okay.
Yep. But Carrie was the previous person in that role. We can go to the next slide. So the way I have this laid out is, and kind of the way that we've done this historically, is we have certain amounts that we've spent on the Iowa side and the Nebraska side in both of those categories of vehicle purchases and service contracts. So I'm proposing we kind of just keep it that way. I don't think that we want to rock the boat too much, at least in this first go round with the new process. So in the past, the split between the two states has been about 69% Nebraska, 31% Iowa. And then we usually spend about 56% of our funding on vehicles and 44% on service contracts. Next. So based on that, we will have about a little more than 2 years worth of funding. We get about, well, depends on the year. We get about $900,000 to $1 million a year. It ticks up a little bit each year, but we have basically 1.9 million is what I'm estimating right now, and I'll get an actual amount by the time we're ready to actually select projects. But based on what we've got in the program currently and the estimates for funding for 2027, we'll basically have a little bit of 25 and then most of 26 and 27 that we'll be able to spend or that we'll need to put projects toward in this fall. And that basically comes out to MAPA will be requesting about 10% of that for administrative purposes, which is what we've done in the past. And then the numbers on the screen show you kind of what the estimates would be for vehicle purchases on the Iowa side, and then service contracts, and then the same thing in Nebraska. So basically about 309,000 for vehicle purchases for Iowa, 243,000 for service contracts, and then 688,000 for vehicle purchases in Nebraska and 540,000 for service contracts in Nebraska. And again, we wouldn't be saying that this is definitely what we're going to spend. We will have opportunities to amend the program, especially after we see what the applications are when they come in. This is basically just kind of what do you call it? Kind of an educated estimate as to what we would be spending in the next year. And so basically, the staff recommendation would be to adopt these targets for the 2027 Transportation Improvement Program. And if anybody would like to suggest adjustments to this, I would be happy to take that feedback now.
Court, this is Melanie again. Just a clarifying question regarding the vehicle purchases money. I'm presuming there's still vehicle shortage, correct? So any thoughts there? I mean, any other information on that?
So my understanding, talking with NDOT, is that they're able to procure vehicles at this point, and like they're moving forward with delivery of kind of some of the stuff that's been in our queue for a while. But our vehicle queue will be almost eliminated after this year. So we are getting to a point where there's not really much of a backlog. I think there will be 4 vehicles remaining. And the only reason that those 4 vehicles are remaining is because those agencies actually asked to wait because they've already taken delivery of a few other vehicles and they don't actually have an immediate need for those additional vehicles.
Okay.
So we are almost to a point where if we don't have additional funding in the program and are not lining up projects, we'll have trouble participating. We won't be ready when the vehicles are there, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, effectively, my ask is for a motion to recommend these targets for the 27 program, unless there are adjustments that folks would like to make. And I will state again that we will have an opportunity to amend this before we actually make awards.
So is there a motion is needed, is what you're asking, Court?
That is correct.
Well, I'm on
But it
Zoom
would
land. I'm on Zoom land, so it's a gray area for me to do that. But otherwise, I would motion to let you go ahead.
Sure. It would have to come from inside of the room, yes.
All motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Opposed, same sign? Motion passed.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I was gonna say Lindsay tied her hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to go into the bylaws and I agree that it's, something that we need to evaluate moving forward for general ability to run business, so. Okay, so that's it from court, yes?
Mhm.
So moving on to our next agenda item for CTP update and next steps. So Audia, I just sent you a hyperlink, if you could drop that into the chat for those online. Those in the room, I have printed out a copy of our mobility resource guide. That guide, I believe, was last finalized in the fall of 2023. One of the things that we talked about in an earlier meeting was action steps to make sure that this guide is up to date and kind of more regularly updating Nebraska 211 with information so that they are providing correct and accurate service information to folks that call that number. So what I'm asking for folks in the room to do now or over the next week or so is to take a look at that mobility resource guide. For those online, I think Audia just dropped a link for you in the chat. And to please let me know if the information in that guide is accurate. And if not, to either let us know today or shoot us an email and we can make sure that that is updated to reflect current conditions. It has been a couple years since this was finalized. The plan is moving forward to check in at least once a year to get a more timely update to these to this information. I can see Alicia's already crossing things out. So.
Melanie has a question.
What is your question, Melanie?
I'm not sure if it's a full question or a statement, but I know several months back we discussed potentially having someone from 211 come in either for a presentation or something like that. Is that still an option? I think it might be beneficial to explore that. And in addition to that, I've been supporting individuals to call 211 for resources, and they're just there's definitely an education gap with the individual on the phone. They maybe don't know enough, and I know 211 has gone through a big hiring lately, so just might be something to make some connections there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll make sure that that gets into the minutes. And I know that we have a couple contacts at 211 that we can reach out to see if they'd be able to attend this meeting either as a one-off or just generally
Yeah,
try and get some of that information.
thanks.
Yeah, thanks. So does anybody see any immediate needs for updates other than voting info?
I think it would be nice to, switch it up so it's not just Metro Hubs.
Yeah, that would be good.
Alicia, would it be worth to put something about Metro Flex on there, or is that not as permanent yet?
It is still a pilot, but it could be good to add that in there.
Just a thought. I mean, I know it's got its zones, but at least something directing to a website that can be updated later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Melanie has a question now as well.
Yeah, I was looking at the guide and we could play around with this because I'm not sure how this would fit in the guide, but I do think that we need to do a better job at explaining to people how they can connect between two different services. For example, the Council Bluffs services and the Omaha services, we're just not educating people on how to do it. And that might be a place where we could include a contact or re-clarify that your paratransit eligibility can transfer, just something.
Yep. Okay.
Take a look at that for sure.
I don't know if it's too in the weeds, but I know that for 5310 recipients, the eligibility standards are different. Like Moby isn't based on age. And it's not even necessarily just based on disability, so. I don't know how to communicate that in a guide, but. So like just thinking about the coordination between services, like not everyone who rides Bellevue would be eligible to ride.
Oh, yes, yes, that's true. Mhm.
I
And
feel
don't
like
have a
this,
ton of infographics on there, but maybe one of those little map pinpoints of like, having to be from that vicinity. One other thing I did put in the chat was when Melanie was talking about the to intersect between two different services would be a good thing for the new transit plan.
and I would say like the more and more I think about this, all these different services have a little bit different eligibility, like whether it's based on their funding or whatever. And that does get confusing for a consumer to follow. Um, and I feel like some kind of resource needs to be created in that area as well, and it may not be strictly just a resource guide. So just something to think through. How do we educate those people on that when they are looking to coordinate with services?
No, I definitely agree with that. That's kind of a pretty substantial gap that we have in our current system for sure. I think for now, rather than doing a complete overhaul of the existing guide, we just want to make sure that the information that's in there is accurate. And then I think as we move into our next coordinated transit planning effort, then we can kind of start exploring new resources and things that might be a bit more effective from a consumer standpoint. Kind of make that a bigger focus for sure. Any other resource guide?
And Melanie, this is Melanie again. I know there's resources there like for United Healthcare's transportation and those kinds of things. I would
Mhm.
definitely look at those because those have also gotten a lot more complicated to navigate, and the numbers that you call are different now. Um, I wish I could even give you the correct one because I'm calling a different one every other week. So it might just be simple as a line that says your health insurance may provide transportation. I'm hesitant to provide those kind of phone numbers.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Great. So if anyone does have specific updates with regards to contact information, hours, cost, description, things that are currently in the existing guide that are inaccurate, Melanie, I agree that maybe removing those United Healthcare specific phone numbers would be a good thing to update, especially if those numbers aren't accurate anymore, to just swap out with insurance may provide transit service information.
Yeah, it's that was another thing that we had thought about having a presentation on, but the long and short of it is that they're also changing who they contract with for customer service. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so let me know, if there are those changes and we'll make sure to get them implemented into these guides. So Alicia, send me your script.
Question,
Yes.
sorry. So we've been working on updating, phasing out our TDD number, but we've been training our staff to receive 711 calls.
Okay.
So that might be something too to add, like which providers are trained and or ask everyone to get trained through the provider, and it's like a half-hour training.
Okay.
I think Nebraska and Iowa are the same. They're both under Hamilton really, services.
I'm not sure.
It's great. They just teach you like what to expect if you're gonna receive a 711 call that's mediated or there's an interpreter for a communication assistant.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks, folks. We'll move to the other part of this, which is, we've talked a bit, already today about our coordinated transit plan. So this is kind of just, timeline to show everyone kind of what that's gonna look like over the next year. We have talked about this a bit at previous meetings, so this is kind of more of a reminder. That the last plan was last updated in 2022. As Rich mentioned, conditions were very different around that time, so lots changed over the years. So we're required to update this on a 5-year schedule. So in order to get it finished and updated by December of 2027, which is our due date, this is kind of working backwards, that we're gonna start, working on it in earnest, this summer in 2026, in this year. So that's going to include things like goal setting, data collection. A big part of this plan is existing services, existing like hospital locations, schools, work, demographic information. So our team internally at MAPA is going to start looking at a lot of that information. And then we're also going to look at outreach. So one thing that I would like to hear back from our transit providers in the room, are like any information you might have on surveys that you conduct either with users or with your drivers. That we can coordinate on to either maybe add some questions that would be relevant to the regional plan, or potentially coordinate kind of across transit agencies to make sure that those questions are similar in nature, so we can kind of report on that at a regional level if possible. And I don't know what your schedules look like for those surveys, if you run surveys in general, but that would be information that I would want to have, for lack of better wording, but
We are doing our onboard survey in October 27.
of 27, yeah,
I don't know if that's too late for.
might be a bit too bit. So I guess, is anyone running surveys this year?
Well, let us discuss. Melanie just raised in the chat that she is not sure if they've ever used a survey
Typically, our onboard surveys focus on fixed.
On fixed rate? Okay. So that might be something that we would put a call out to transit providers, and we would be able to send staff to help to kind of like do some of that facilitation surveys on route to get some rider perspective. But we can talk about that in our meeting in July to do a bit more brainstorming about what that might look like over the next year. And then next year we'll put the plan together. And as I mentioned, that'll kind of be guided by. No, that's all I had for that piece. We've got. This is my ordinary. Got 40 minutes. So we got a good chunk of time if anyone has any additional business or would like to comment as a member of the public. I know, Joshua, you mentioned that you were online, so if you had any comments, questions, concerns, now would be your time to let us know. Melanie, I know you've got your hand raised there too.
Yeah, I don't know if we got left off or what, but I did have some thoughts on some things that have changed in the metro services that I wanted to bring to the committee's attention. Is it okay right now?
Yeah.
I think that's why some people who you maybe don't see are here in this meeting today. So, but those of you who maybe don't know, there have been some changes to Mobi service, both in the month of March and now in April. And I'm a little concerned about just I don't know. I'll go through it all and then you guys can come to your own conclusions. So, starting on March 1st, Metro has changed essentially the wait time when they pull up to a location, how long they're going to wait for someone. It used to be 10 minutes, now it's 5. I'm not too terribly concerned about that in all spaces. My mild concerns are not all locations have a safe space to wait that is away from the elements to wait for that ride to show up. As you know, you get a half-hour window. So it is a little concerning, and I know the CTC has discussed doing more walkthroughs of community to look at sidewalk safety and that kind of thing, and that's why I bring it to the committee's attention. And if you're changing your wait times, safety does come to mind for me. And those notifications of changing of wait times came out in December of 25, so we were notified of those. There was public comment had around that, and I don't know if Alicia wants to talk about any of that at all. But then the other change that has come up started on April 1st, though for me as a user, I don't think I was actually notified until probably April 8th or 9th. Metro has changed their who is doing their customer service, and I'm presuming this is a cost saving measure, but I am a little concerned about gaps in services, and I'm going to pause there and let either anybody in the room speak or questions. I'm concerned about it. That's all I can say. I've received several calls from people about the change in this.
Well, we should respond to that, I guess.
Or I didn't know if anybody else you wanted to.
Yeah, I guess, is there anyone else online that has similar concerns they would like to raise? I will briefly remind that this is a coordinated transit meeting, so we do have multiple different transit services represented. It is not a Metro exclusive committee. However, we do have a member of the committee, so if those concerns want to be raised, I'm not sure we can still discuss them.
I'm just curious how decisions around customer service are made and if other providers have thoughts on that. That's what I'm curious about.
Okay, so was there anyone else online that wanted to add to that before we give the floor over to Alicia for a minute? We'll give a minute in case anybody needs to put something in the chat. So Alicia, do you have any comments on?
Yeah, so regarding the vehicle weight policy, we did update that. We did public meetings in July. And then initiated or had that approved by our board of directors late last year. I don't remember the exact month. And then we did implement a grace period. So through the months of January and February, we were reminding riders that it was going to be transitioning from the 10 to 5 minutes. And then it fully went into effect on March 1st. We did previously talk about it here in the CPC as well. I asked for feedback from other providers, and it seemed like largely every other provider also had the 5 minute wait period. It does not mean that the person has to be on board within 5 minutes. It just means that they have to be outside of the door so that we know they're going to be taking the trip within 5 minutes. And that is to align with the public paratransit standards nationwide, and also to help with our efficiency. It became quite problematic, especially when we have no-show trips, that everyone on the vehicle, our operator, as well as other riders, were sitting and waiting for 10 minutes. We got complaints from riders who, were concerned about that from their end as well. So this is just one way that we're kind of trying to realign with national standards for paratransit service from a public transit perspective. And then for the customer service, so we do have a contracted service for our customer service provider. We've had that contracted out for over a decade, but the last provider had the contract the whole time. As folks are familiar with kind of federal and state procurement standards, we are required to put contracts out for bid to maintain full and open competition. So we did go through that process. It was a little bit overdue, but we went through that process for the customer service contracts. That was to align with, make sure that the contract was aligned with our current expectations as well. So we were able to reset some key performance indicators and have them actually be built into the contract and be able to hold the contractor accountable to those metrics. So we did end up having 4 or 5 contractors bid. And cost was a main factor, but it was not the only factor. We did use the request for proposal process, which doesn't require you to go by cost, but it just can certainly be a factor. So we felt confident with the responsiveness and responsibility of the awarded contractor. And as with any new contract, there's going to be a transition period and getting everyone up to speed. The new contractor has been doing a really great job in learning and acclimating quickly. And we're continuing to meet with them, talk with them daily. I do live listens for their calls. We do listen to recordings. We troubleshoot issues as needed. And then I do just want to reiterate that communication skills with individuals with disabilities was part of the contract. And so that's something that we are monitoring and working to, improve if there are concerns in that area. So we understand that the transition is challenging, that it's change and it's new. They're talking to different people now than that they've been used to for maybe a decade. So, but we're optimistic that the adjustment will continue and that the contractor will continue to improve, and they're very committed to doing so.
Oh, we have a couple things raised in the chat. Melanie just said, has the wait time impacted the Metroflex service by change, especially when given that this is more of a same-day service, thinking maybe making it easier to use? And Christy responded, my concern is on customer service. I could not get hold Saturday evening and Moby never returned me home.
So I don't know what time that was. I would ask the individual to submit the information to moby@ometro.com and we can review it. Customer service does end at 7 p.m. on Saturdays. But if they need to get through to dispatch about a trip that is specific to that time or after that time, there is an option within the call tree.
And what about my question around the Metroflex component?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, absolutely. Apologies. Has the wait time impacted the Metroflex service by chance, especially when given that this is more of a same-day service?
I do not believe that it has impacted. I don't know for certain. But I do know that for the microtransit or the Metroflex service, the wait time for that service is 2 minutes.
Okay. I guess for this committee, I think we need to look at just how, for example, with the Metro service now, there's an email for canceling, but there's not an email for booking. And so for those individuals that maybe struggle more in the communication department, some people don't do well when it's a new person on the phone and they struggle making trips. So I'm just wondering how maybe other providers take trips from individuals that struggle with communication, something that maybe could help in this interim while they're adjusting to new people.
And I can share that. So Metro does submit a program of projects to MAPA, which I think goes through the TTAC.
Yeah, kind of.
Or to the board.
Yeah, I mean, it would all get rolled into the transportation improvement program. So it's kind of all in that document as it's passed through our process. So it would go through TTAC, but they're not usually scrutinizing that particular program.
Okay. So in our 2027 program of proposals or pop submission, it did include the paratransit software. So we are hoping to go out for bid for paratransit software so that we can include other booking options. It's not going to be an immediate solution, but it is part of the plan as we do know and recognize that that has been a request from riders for quite some time. So right now we're not able to implement it. Email booking would not be a suitable option because of the trip negotiation standards for ADA complimentary paratransit.
Melanie has been asked, how do other cities handle trip scheduling or customer service?
So I know we've got a number of other committee members online and we've got Tammy in the room with Council Bluffs. So do you have any comments about how Council Bluffs Transit handles customer service queries, working with individuals who might have communications challenges?
So with our new provider, via transportation, we now have 3 options for bookings. One is the call-in, phone number. They can also book through the VIA website and also through an app. So we have expanded options for this with communication differences.
And
Thank
prior to that, it was just phone.
It was just phone, yeah.
That's what I was interested in, is to know who offered an online option. So thank you.
Amanda, Donna, do you have insights on how you provide booking and or customer service options at your agencies?
Well, we have a really small department. It's myself and one other person outside of the driver. So anybody who has like any sort of feedback would just have to call during business hours. We don't have anything online at this time. But we are working on that. Actually, we just met with legal to approve some stuff. So we're getting there, but for now we're still kind of in the dark ages.
Yeah, ours is very similar to the City of Papillion, or for us. We just have, they can call me directly at my phone number, or they can call either of the bus phone numbers to handle customer service issues. But otherwise, as far as scheduling, we have 2 different phones for both of our services, and they call directly there to schedule their appointments directly with the bus drivers. But we don't have anything online.
Similar situation for La Vista, as the bus service is solely run by me and the bus drivers. They are customers can certainly call into the bus drivers. We do have when we encounter individuals in person who perhaps speak different languages, we utilize things like Google Translate to be able to adequately know what they're trying to express to us, and so that we can communicate important information to them. But at this moment in time, we also do not have any online scheduling capabilities.
Thank you.
Rich has asked if there's any issues with Metro's customer service. Is there an alternative option, thinking more immediate need? Sorry, if there's an issue with Metro's customer service, is there an alternative option?
It would depend on what the issue is.
Sorry, Alicia. Mainly what I was kind of getting at is just if there is, something, and I'm assuming the website's probably the preferred, but if somebody does have kind of a more immediate need and they get through to the customer service, whether if it's talking to that customer service person and asking for supervisor or, other up the food chain, like what would you recommend if somebody isn't satisfied with that phone number to then get their immediate need as resolved as possible?
So Moby riders are provided both with my contact information as well as the Moby manager's contact information. So that would probably be the route that I would direct people to. I am responsible for the customer service contract, so that can certainly be directed to me. But for trip booking and those types of needs, that would continue to have to go through customer service, and then I would work with the supervisors to coach as needed.
So that answered my question, because just hearing Amanda and others talk about that, them taking phone calls, like I was kind of curious if there was alternatives too. But thank you for that. I know this is a change. There's a lot of moving pieces and just any new service contracts, anything is a learning curve.
Thanks all. Just to your Joshua, do you have any comments or things you would like raised at this time before we move on to the next agenda item?
I do not.
Give Christie some time in the chat first. So Christie is just asking, before, if you called it 7, you add traffic. I'm not sure.
Oh, it transfers to dispatch. So if you go through the call tree, after 7 p.m., if you select one, it would be the bus for the general queue. So that would disconnect. If you go through the Mobi queue, there is a prompt to, that if you have an issue with a trip after customer service hours or need to cancel a trip, for those hours, then you can press 2 again to get through dispatch, but we do ask that if it is beyond those hours or if it's an issue that could be addressed the next day when customer service hours are operational, but we are asking people to wait, as dispatch is managing multiple responsibilities, and so we need them to prioritize focusing on, operations and making sure that the vehicles and drivers are getting where they need to go.
Thanks. So do we have any other comments under this agenda item before we move on?
Melanie just said in the chat, I'm requesting CTC proceed with practice calls for booking. This was discussed in the past, maybe 2 different providers for comparison.
Practice calls for booking?
We
Sorry,
had,
Melanie, I don't
yeah, so I can clarify. We had at one time discussed doing a mock booking of a trip with Metro, and so I'm suggesting that we continue to look into doing that. It can still be done via Zoom. I'm happy to do it. Really, we can find anybody, but to do that with multiple providers just to see how it all works. Even doing like an online booking with one that offers an online system and something else.
Yeah, that's something that we can look into for sure. And we can maybe, as MAPA staff, discuss offline how that might work.
You can also share the call script.
Yeah.
Some of the challenge that we've seen is that contractually, our agents are required to follow a call script, and that's taking some getting used to for riders, especially if they're trying to dictate more of their pickup time than we can. So agents have not been given permission to be as flexible as previous agents. So that's just to adhere strictly to the FTA regulations of trip negotiation.
Anything else at this time? I'll go on to our next agenda item, which is member agency updates. So I feel like we've gotten a lot of updates for Metro already. Is there anything else you would like to add? And we'll open up for any other members who would like to provide an update on what you've got going on right now. We've got about 15 minutes left. So.
I can just share that if anybody has folks who ride the fixed route, we do have some service changes going into effect on Sunday, April 19th. Probably the biggest change is that the Route 30 is realigning, so it will no longer go downtown, but it will instead route to Exarban Transit Center through Saddle Creek, the southern part of Saddle Creek, not North Saddle Creek, but all of that information is available on our website.
Any other member agency updates? Any from folks online? Well, in that case here, I've got this slide up that shows some upcoming MAPA committee meetings. So the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee will be meeting this Friday at 10 a.m. Our board of directors is next Thursday at 1:30. Regional Planning Advisory Committee is meeting Friday, June 5th at 10 a.m. All three of those meetings take place here at the Metro Transit Building. And then our next scheduled CTC meeting is Wednesday, July 15th. So if there's no other questions, comments, concerns, I would entertain a motion to adjourn for today. Brandon has raised fingers, so we'll say Brandon is motion to adjourn. And I don't think we need to vote on that. But
I have
yeah,
one
go ahead,
comment.
Jen.
Now that I'm looking at the agenda, the agenda, we approved the January minutes.
Yes,
not
so
the
I
October.
need to-
Okay, never mind. I was thinking that was the minutes. Yep.
Yep.
So not a difference.
Sorry.
They're just died, so they're updating the chat.
Yeah, okay. Anything else in the chat? Like not, okay, then we'll be all set for today. Thank you everyone for your time and see y'all again in July.
In July, perfect.